And welcome back, everyone, to part 7 of What If Naruto went rogue and started his own village. Last time on Naruto What If, we had basically the middle period, the training period between the preliminaries and the actual exams, which are much larger here. Now, as always, well, not as always, but occasionally, I do a little house cleaning for questions that were asked or comments brought up in the previous video that needed some answering or just need some basic answering. Two very quick answers. One, I'll go a little bit more in depth on. It's not a question so much as a comment. And so first off, why? So Naruto did not learn the summoning jutsu here. Why is that? Well, the reason Jiraiya taught Naruto the summoning jutsu was so he could learn to control the Nine-Tails Fox chakra because the the amount of chakra it takes to use the summoning jutsu was so great that Naruto just didn't have the chakra control or the reserves at the time to use it normally. That's why when even he knows how to use it, he's not able to summon anything more than say like Gamakichi. So Jiraiya saw Naruto using the Fox chakra and using it relatively well. So he knew this probably wasn't the time to be teaching him the summoning jutsu. So Rasengan was the next best choice in that regard. Next, did Karine get the Genesis Rebirth seal, the Bakugo seal? I think that's how it's referred to. Either way, did she get the seal, the Genesis Rebirth technique seal on her head? No, she's only been studying under Tsunade for less than a month. And while Tsunade probably sees promise in her, she's not gonna just give her the seal to use. No, that's something you spend years with your sensei for. So there's that. Last but not least, and this is the one I'll go on a little longer about, but I don't want to linger on it more than a minute or two if I can. Someone asked, and that's not true. Someone said they weren't really liking my interpretation of Tsunade. And in fact, actually, you know what? I'm going to find that exact comment. Because I'm not saying this to bash the person. If anything, I completely respect. Not everyone's going to like how I do a story or portray a character, and that's perfectly fine. That's their prerogative. What they like is different than what I will choose to do. Sorry, there we go. So let's see. Where was that comment exactly? And I'm not going to call the person out. I'm just finding the comment. Where was that comment? Basically, they didn't like how I was portraying Tsunade because, people do take and cope with trauma very differently. And they thought Naruto would understand that, especially meeting after so many people with different stories. And they did point out that it was Goro who technically started the fight. So any damage would have been Goron's fault. So first and foremost, let's go to that latter part first. Not entirely. See, Tsunade could be the bigger woman and walk away. She could. But Tsunade's got a bad temper herself. She's still drunk, even though I made the sober yourself up joke. And Goron started the fight, technically, but Tsunade started it before by insulting people. And insulting people on a very large, for no reason. Now that leads me to the second point. If it didn't work for you, that's totally fine. But I do take issue when people say people cope with trauma. First off, just because Naruto's met different people doesn't mean I think he'd agree with how Tsunade's acting or treating or talking about people in the place she is visiting, where they live. Naruto had already met Gaara at that point, in the original Gaara at that point, Inari at that point. There's several different people who had far worse backstories than Tsunade, by the way. Let's not mince words. Tsunade, as tragic as her story is, she lost 2 people she loved. Great. But you know what? Inari had lost his home pretty much until it was taken back. Lost his adopted dad. Gaara was born to be a weapon. Was betrayed by the one person he loved. Lost his mom in childbirth. Was constantly attacked. So you know what, Tsunade? Suck it. You know what? I'm not mincing words here. This is what I mean when I say I have a problem with people. And I'm not talking about just in the story. I'm actually referring to in real life. I hate people using terms like people cope in many ways, or this person, like Jake is just doing Jake, or Jessica's doing Jessica right now, as a justification for bad behavior. There is a point where your trauma is no longer, you're no longer, because when you really break it down, Tsunade wasn't coping. Tsunade let her trauma and tragedy define her actions at that point and define who she was. Coping is getting through your day-to-day life and functioning relatively. Yeah, she could theoretically function, but the fact is, her tragedy, it'd be one thing to call it coping still if it were like a few years after. This is over a decade after. She's a grown-ass woman. I'm not saying it's easy to get over trauma. Believe me, I got my own issues. But I'm saying there comes a point where you can't use that excuse to justify behavior. And maybe you're not justifying behavior when you say that about anyone. Maybe you're just trying to explain why someone's doing it. But the problem is, even if that's what you're trying to do, using the term coping or they're doing them, it doesn't sound like you're explaining what they're doing. It just sounds like you're justifying what they're doing. And it doesn't justify treating people poorly, talking shit about them, all of that, and just having a bad attitude and making your problems someone else's problems. And if this sounds out of character for Tsunade, when you really break it down, it does not. When we meet her, she's already basically been drinking a lot when Jiraiya and Naruto catch up with her. She openly insults the village, the Hokage position, and the third, a good man who made mistakes. I all made mistakes, but a good man who made mistakes, gave his life, and she's openly, her former sensei, and she's openly just mocking him and mocking and just calling him a fool and all that. And then she has the gall to actually challenge a 12-year-old kid to a fight. So I'm sorry. I'm sounding a little defensive. I'm sorry if the interpretation of Tsunade didn't work for you. But this, I do think it falls very well into her character to act like this, at least upon first meeting. And I don't think her being in her grandmother's ancestral home would really curb that attitude very much. I think she's just too bitter at this point. But again, we got to a point at the end of the last part where she definitely had come around, and she's seeing everything that people have built, and she is seeing life finding a way, as Malcolm would put it. So she's still managing. She's staying back in Uzo, at least for a time being, to really help set up their hospital and stuff like that, because that's something that most likely hadn't really been set up yet, is a hospital. It might have been like a basic med station, but Tsunade's kind of there to help out with the hospital scenario and the medical situation. Sorry. Anyway, I digress. So that is what I wanted to talk about. I went on longer than I should have, and I always do that, but whatever. But yeah, sorry if the interpretation didn't work for you, but from the way I interpreted the scenario, that fell within the purview of all the characters. Tsunade was still very much at fault for the fight happening. Tsunade instigated the fight. That's really what happened. She didn't respect where she was, and she didn't realize that, yeah, eventually you're going to talk enough shit, people are going to stand up to you. So, we're now in the tuning exam finals. As I said prior, we had the Uzukage, Utakata. I always have trouble with his name. It's that extra K that's a problem. Utakata. We have the third. We have the Kazekage, Orochimaru disguised. And we have A here. And A is here very much because he wants to see what these so-called Uzumaki, who beat all of them, who beat all of the Stone Ninja and all the Lightning Ninja, because I believe, who did I have in the matchup real quick with the rest of them? Because all the Lightning Ninja, except for Omi of all people, or Omi. Where did I write that down real quick? Nope, we're going back this way a little bit. There, and there it is. Who beat who in the fight? Because this is all the way last week. Karine had beat Kurasuchi. Yeah, none of them had fought. Oh no, that's right. Naruto had beaten Yugito in the fight. And you beat your two-tailed Jinchuriki, who has a solid control over his Jinchuriki. That's going to catch his attention. Hearing that this was a Naruto Uzumaki, and that was from New Uzu, he wants to see what the dealio is. Plus, he still has a ninja in the finals, so support that one ninja. Anyway, so the fights start to get underway. However, I do think before their match even begins, Kankuro does say, yeah, sorry, I'm going to have to forfeit. I've come to the conclusion I don't think I can beat this guy. Now, he's lying because in the original, he didn't want the Leaf to see the modifications he had made to Crow. Now, you could make the argument that he could have been told to still fight, just don't show your modifications, but I don't think he'd want to risk his puppet that way. So he still goes like, all right then, so, well, we'll just move on to the next fight. That'll be Fu. Fu doesn't have a surname, so, I mean, would she take Uzumaki as her surname, kind of like as a adopted sibling thing? I don't think so. But Fu, whatever her last name would be, Fu this versus Hinata Hyuga. And so the match gets underway. Both girls look at each other, and they're just giving a confidence there. Hinata spent a lot of time training. She has particularly been working to try to take on Fu because she saw the fact that Fu beat Neji. And she beat Neji pretty handedly. And Neji, by all accounts, was stronger than Hinata, including in this version. So she had to train to figure out, how am I going to be able to take this girl down when she could just fly up in the air and avoid any strikes I throw at her. Excuse me. And so the fight commences, and Hinata gets in her stance. Fu is also getting ready to go in a stance, and the fight goes down. And Fu immediately takes to the air. So, and it's like, all right, she's not going to be able to hit me. I'll be able to throw some Earth style at her. And so that's exactly what she starts doing, throwing like Earth style. I don't know, rock rain jutsu. I don't know. I don't think there's a technique that just lifts boulders and then throws them. So anyway, yeah, rock rain jutsu. She's throwing rocks at Hinata. Hinata is avoiding, dodging, weaving. She's also using her gentle fist to just kind of bun them out of the way, even breaking some rocks. Fu notes that her gentle fist is much more powerful than it was in the Tsunade preliminaries. That's because she's been working on stronger strikes. However, and then this is where Fu is ready to just kind of do the living blow. She does the same thing. Blinding scale technique, I think it was. Blinding scale technique. Hinata sees and closes her eyes, and then the technique is, activates. And so then Fu comes in, ready to just kind of do the knockout blow, when all of a sudden Hinata just dodges. It's like, what? And then just comes in and just actually lands a good shot on Fu. Just go. What? And her wing kind of hitches, like, and she's still able to stay afloat, but now she's kind of like wobbling. What was that? And Hinata's eyes are still closed. And, all right, now let's try this. She gets a crater fist, raw earth style crater fist, just comes in again. Now just breaks the fist and gets both her hands. Now her wings flutter a little bit and kind of phase out before she's able to catch herself. She catches herself on the ground. It's like, what's going on? And her eyes are still closed, and then she kind of puts it together. Because she sees the veins activate on Hinata's eyes. Her Byakugan, but how it... And... you got it. And she's like, she kind of like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And Hinata does actually smile a bit. She's like, yeah, I understood. You used that technique against Neji to blind him. I was not about to let that happen to me. So, fortunately, the Byakugan allows not only to see the chakra points of an opponent, but also allows us to see through objects, including her own eyelids. So in essence, she's just using her Byakugan with her eyes closed, but it's because she's not actually directly looking at something, she's able to avoid at least the blinding effects of the light effects of the blinding scales technique. She can still see the chakra, but it's more just like she's watching a dust cloud fall in like black and white X-ray vision. And so Hinata comes in again, and now Fu's on the back foot. Fu's able to get her wings up again, only for her to get back in the air, only for Hinata to take a stance. And if you know the anime, because I've been using a lot of anime stuff, you know what this stance is: protection of the 8 trigrams, 64 palms. And this would be her only range technique she has. It's the only other technique she's been working on to allow her to combat Fu. And she just starts doing it, and Fu's dodging, and but then her wing gets clipped. And she goes down the ground. She's about to get torn pretty much into cinders when she activates one of the other abilities of Chomei, which is the chakra webbing. And she wrapped herself basically in the cocoon, which, because it's absorbing chakra and capable of doing that, the blades, if you'll call them that, strings, are cutting into the chakra cocoon, but are quickly just being absorbed, and then she just busts out and just throws the webbing at Hinata, who just is unable to avoid because she's taxed at this point, and then ultimately gets hit by the webbing and kind of bound, and she's just stuck. She's able, I think, to pull one last trick and break out of the webbing with like again, kind of like how Neji did it, because it's not the same type of webbing as what Kitamaru uses, but ultimately she's too tired to continue, and Fu's also kind of like kind of huffing too, like, holy crap, this girl's good, and ultimately she surrenders, like, I give up, and Fu offers a hand, they shake, it was a good match, crowd cheers, yeah. Meanwhile, at the plot, and the third's like, yeah, your Uzu ninja are quite impressive indeed, Utakata. It's like, indeed, thank you. Your Leaf Shinobi are impressive as well. And A, who was just kind of like watching, is like, I concur. Your Uzu ninja are quite impressive, but there's still other matches to be had. And so the next match happens, which would be Gaara versus Lee. That match would go down pretty much as it does in the preliminary, minus the fact that Lee does have more room. So it probably would take longer for Lee to lose, and Lee has probably been working out even harder between matches, allowing him to basically increase his speed and power. So he might be able to overwhelm Gaara a lot more, but he's ultimately still going to lose. And because of that, Lee will still lose, and Guy gets in the way. And it's like, let me kill him. Like, that's enough, Gaara. And it's like, damn it. And that's enough. The match is over. If you continue, you will be disqualified. And Gaara walks away. Now, big thing here. Before I continue, when is the invasion actually happening? Gaara is supposed to be the trigger for the invasion. However, Orochimaru also wants to see Sasuke in action, obviously. And he probably wants to see a little bit of Naruto, too, because he saw what Naruto was capable of doing, and he was impressed. So he wants to see what Uzu is capable of. Add on the fact there was actually a real Uzumaki there, he's like, ooh, interesting. So I think Gaara is still the trigger, but not yet. We'll wait to when we'll wait, because Gaara's going to have a couple more matches here. Spoilers, we're going to go a couple of rounds here. But then comes Omai. Again, it's Omai? Omai. I think it's Omai versus Shikamaru. And by all accounts, Omai should actually have the complete edge over Shikamaru. He's better at hand-to-hand combat. He's got more destructive capability, but so did Tamari. Tamari is also a lot smarter than Omai, too. The problem here is Omai's little hitch about overthinking things. And so Omai comes in, overthinks a little bit, eventually gets caught by the Shadow Clone Jutsu, and Shikamaru honestly just makes him surrender. And Shikamaru isn't even anywhere near as tired out here as he is in the original, so he allows himself to go into the next match, which unfortunately for him we'll get to in a little while. Next up would be Naruto Uzumaki versus Kiba. Kiba is ready to go. I don't personally know what Kiba could do in that month's time of training and what you could add to his arsenal. He could train to get stronger faster, but by how much? And even though Kiba could get stronger faster, he still would be no match for Naruto at this time in Naruto's story. So Kiba gets in, it's like, yeah, this is a long time coming, brat. And it's like, brat, I'm going to show you what. And he starts just mocking Naruto a little bit. It's like, yeah, well, take your best shot, Kiba. I'm not worried about some guy who had to just leave the village just to become a ninja in some second-rate village. That might seem a little harsh, but again, Kiba was kind of a jerk. So yeah, I'd say that. And Naruto kind of puts a grin on it. It's like, is that a fact? It's like, thing over thing! Wind style, crescent gust. And just, and Kiba just kind of goes flying back. Naruto's just got his sword ready, just holding it on its side. Like, well, come on, I thought you were going to show me what's for. All right, Akuma, I guess we can't play around. Let's do this. Thing over thing! And Naruto is admittedly struggling a little bit. It's like, whoop. His sword actually grinds against them, causing sparks. Just, it's like, all right, that's enough of this. And finally, he just creates a Rasengan in his hand, which everyone in the crowd goes, wait, what's that? And the people know, it's like, when did he Jiraiya, you scamp? And Rasengan! And more or less the rotation is countered until finally Kiba stops and then gets meanwhile, Akamaru's like, oof. And Naruto's like, sorry, Akamaru. Poop. Akamaru goes down. And that ends that match. The winner is Naruto Uzumaki. The next match will be, where are you? The next match will be, where are you? Sorry, give me 1 second. Next match will be Keen of the Sound versus, ironic that it is Keen of all people who wins. Keen of the Sound versus Karine of Uzu. And that match goes quick. Like, Keen throws out the Senbon, tries to use it against Karine, but she just quickly grabs him, snaps him, is like, yeah, none of that now. And then water style, that's easy. Everyone's kind of like, all right, everyone's like, we want a good match. Come on, Now, at this point, because enough time's passed and we have a lot of matches, based on the time frame that happened, Sasuke would show up still. Would show up on time, as a matter of fact. He's your good puppy. Sorry, Domino, she needs scritches. She needs scritches. So, yeah, Sasuke and Kakashi would show up on time. They would admittedly show up on the battlefield just as their match is probably about to begin, but they would show up on time. So, Sasuke says, like, well, it's a good thing you showed up. It was a good thing you showed up. We were almost about to eliminate you. He just glares at Kakashi. And he sees his opponent, but his eyes are more fixed on a couple of the other ones. Fu, Gaara, and Naruto. And so Sasuke and Tamari's fight happens. And Sasuke, we know, was already at Lee without his weight. Was it with? No, it was without his weights on levels of speed. So he's already able to rush Tamari and just kind of end the fight really quickly. Even in that mock fight they had in the anime, he quickly beat her, and he wasn't even fresh. Like, he had already used the Chidori, he had already been fighting Gaara in the preliminary rounds at that point. Yeah, no, he wasn't even fresh, and then he whooped Tamari pretty good. So that fight would not last long. I think he would get maybe hit by a gust of wind once, but use a substitution jutsu and then beat her out pretty quick. And so the next matches are as follows: Sai versus Fu, Gaara versus Shikamaru, Naruto versus Karine, and Sasuke actually gets a bye at the moment. And which it's like, oh, good, I can save myself up for the next matches. And he's just looking at Naruto, and he's seeing again this dead last two. He honestly, from what he saw in the fight with Yugito, he's like, how strong did he get? Oh, I'm gonna enjoy this. And am I making Sasuke out to be a little out to get Naruto? Sure. But Sasuke's been a guy who's always been on top for the early part of the series. He was the number one rookie. He was the strongest kid in the class, pretty much. Hinata, in theory, could beat him if she had more confidence, but that's probably the only one in the class who actually could beat him. Shino, maybe, without the Sharingan, mind you. If we're talking about at the beginning, while they were in school. Out of school, once he got the Sharingan, there really wasn't many who could beat him at that point in his age group. Again, Hinata might have been the only one if she had more confidence in herself and really put training to the test. And so we begin the next matches, and honestly, A's just probably annoyed. A's really annoyed that Omi got beat so easily. I'm sorry your one participant didn't make it in time, or did not make it to the next round. To which A is admittedly annoyed, but he also said, honestly, to be honest, I had my hopes, but of the three, he was the one who had the least. He's the one who still has the most growing to do. Boy needs to get out of his head. You still wish to stay and watch the remaining matches. I do. Your leaf ninjas seem quite capable, as do your children, as does Gaara, Lord Kazekage. But I'll forget, as I stated, I am most, as it is the territory that borders us. And it does, if you look at the Uzu map, I don't have it right now, but if you look at the map of the Ninja World, doesn't necessarily border, but it's close. So, as a nearby neighbor, newly established village, I'm curious to see what strength Uzu really has. If we should consider if we should be considering you a potential ally or something else. And Utakata, sorry, I can always say Utaka. Utakata everyone's able to read between the lines. There's no real subtlety with what he just said. But he's, it's like, well, you can make your own assessments, Lord Kazekage, but I can assure you, we have no desire to, we have no desire to be anything more than who we are. Interpret that as you'd like. And so the next matches begin, which start with Sai versus Fu. Now this is very interesting because Sai's ink-based jutsu, is a very unique jutsu that is unique within the overall of Naruto. And at that point, I don't think anyone would really know it very well. They might have seen it a couple times, but they wouldn't necessarily know how to counter. Fu is also looking at Sai, and she just kind of was like, "You ready? I am always ready. I'm always ready." Has Sai grown at all, by the way? I will say this. He's not probably as emotionless as he was when we first meet him in the series, originally. Because he's spending enough time with Sasuke and Sakura to gain the idea of emotions. But he hasn't had his Naruto moment where Naruto has just been pounding the idea of friendship and brotherhood and all that into him. So I do not see him being that ahead. Still, he's got a little bit of growth in him. And so their match begins. Again, Fu goes with the blinding skill technique, however, Sai basically wraps himself in a dome of ink to block it out, and all of a sudden, animals of all kinds just start coming out of it. There's the eagle, he's flying on that. There's lions, there's tigers, the bears, oh my. A snake comes around, something wraps around Fu, just like, it's like, I'm sorry, but I had a feeling I'd be facing one of you later on. I've been given specific orders to try to neutralize you as best as possible, and to see how we would fare. Keep in mind, he's still a member of Root here, and Danzo is still very much active. So he's most likely said, "You will most likely be facing one of the two You'll most likely be facing one of the two Uzu Jinchuriki in the finals, perhaps both. We'll need to. Well, I want to test your ability, see how we'll be able to handle them. Should time ever come, we need to go to war or obtain them for ourselves again." And so he's using a specialized ink style. This isn't the same sealing jutsu he's using in the war arc, but he's definitely using some sort of sealing jutsu to try to kind of pin Fu down. And Fu is struggling. The snake alone is actually very powerful. The animals are coming in. Fu is able to, however, use a technique that I mentioned prior, as there's still the dust from the blinding scales, and she's able to secret ninja art, blinding blizzard, crystal, blinding crystal, or blinding spikes. I haven't created a name for it yet. In essence, because my guess is the blinding scale is an earth-based jutsu, and the fact that it's something glittering, so it's got to be some sort of mildly rock or crystal-based material that's coming out of her. Fu, in theory, could teach her how to manipulate that into a different technique. And sure enough, all of a sudden, the dust all over in the and dust that's still lingering in the area suddenly just turns into these spikes and comes and pierces all of these ink creations. So it's able to break Fu out. Sai is basically ready to do the sealing jutsu until a giant spike comes, destroys the bird. He pulls out his tanto. Fu comes in with her crater fist, wraps the powdered scale crystal, whatever it is, around her fist for one more final attack, and then just kind of like blinds him with a rush for grabbing him. And she finally grabs his brush and ink and all that, and just nope, no more of that now. And he just kind of laments like, I surrender. And so that's the end of that fight. Shikamaru surrenders right out to Gaara. We all can see that happening. Because even if he does get him entrapped in the shallow position, the sand moves on its own, so there's nothing he can do. And then we have Naruto versus Karine. Now, they realized after the fact they're going to be fighting each other. And they haven't really seen much of each other during their training for the finals. So they are curious to know what the others learns. And he just smiles at his, let's be honest, future girlfriend. And she smiles back and says, all right, don't give me everything you got, Karine. Don't hold back. It's like, you're one to talk. You sure you're going to be okay hitting a girl? You're a girl. Oh, I know. What's wrong? To which I think Naruto could even like throw one back there because at this point their attraction for each other's obvious, and they're even aware of it. Say, what's wrong, Karine? I thought you liked me hitting on you. To which Karine actually blushes a little bit and smirks, like, oh, it's gonna be like that. Oh, I'm so making out with you hard when this is over. In her head, she's saying. And so they get ready, and the fight goes down. And she immediately throws out the chains. Because even though Naruto can use wind release to block the chains, I actually wrote a story for my friends, and in one scene I had a character fighting with chains, another character using wind, a base ability or an explosive type effect, and it blows back the chains, but the chains keep coming. That's kind of what's happening here. Naruto's right now only able to use clones to keep the chains at bay. To which Karine says, you know that's not going to work forever. Water style, raging torrent, or whatever it is, surging strike, whatever it is. Basically, the ability to just summon the water out. And she's just making some clones of her own, soaking the landscape in water, like almost creating like a little layer of water in an area. To which she then goes, water style. And she's going through a lot of hand signs. Water dragon jutsu. Holy crap. It's like, Naruto's like, holy crap, she's not kidding around. And he just makes a seal. Quickly makes a seal on the sword, and just pulls it out. And it's like, what? And the cousin's like, what's Naruto doing? It's like, what is? And the Kagebu's, what's Naruto doing? It's Otakata even mentions that it's a seal. Uzumaki's were famous for sealing art. Naruto's, as far as Uzumaki, Naruto's still an experienced bar. His heritage sealing techniques, but as far as sealing users go, Naruto is probably among the stronger in the overall nations. And the boy's only is only a genin. To which Utaka kind of laughs a little bit. To be honest, all three of them probably are already tuning level, but as a new village, we only have one, they're the only genin team we actually have at the moment. And everyone kind of like now and then goes like, wait, what? To which Naruto finally is able to absorb all the water dragon, but he's like, ugh! And finally, it's stored in the seal. It then activates the nurse seal. It's like, back at you, Karine! To which she quickly uses another water, quickly does the hand signs as he throws the water dragon back. She uses another jutsu to basically can deconstruct the water dragon. Probably using a combination of her chains and hand signs, puts the water into her chains and starts attacking Naruto again, who just funnels some wind chakra through his blade. They're clashing with each other, back and forth. Naruto's using clowns, chains, swords, water, wind, all of it is going back and forth until finally Karine starts to realize like her reservoir. She's starting to get a little. It's like, what? And it's like, no, he didn't. And sure enough, she sees she's in like a seal matrix underneath her feet when a bunch of Naruto's draining her chakras. Like, you know that's not going to be easy. And she suddenly whips out. She's got 4 right now. Before her maximum was 4 chains. Technically, you can make as many of these things as you want. She whips out a 5th chain from her hand to suddenly go swipe at the Naruto clones. Like, what? She learned how to make a 5th one. To which Naruto finally has to really break down, and there's no other choice to it. Uses base Kurama chakra form or mode, and just rushes in. And even though the chakra chains are good for sealing off Jinchuri or sealing tail beasts and all that, because Naruto's an Uzumaki, and theoretically, as people point out, should have access to this jutsu, I think his half Uzumaki heritage maybe hurts that a little bit. Because we never actually see him activate it. The one time I think a lot of people have interpreted him activating it, it's actually Kushina's chakra taking effect there. And I'm running low on battery, but that's okay. We're almost done with this part. And so, Naruto basically grabs the chains about to grab him, yanks Karine towards him, and it's like he kind of like mounts, sorry, and just pull it. But she just like, not bad. Except you weren't paying attention either. And the clone pops again, and the real Karine is there with one final technique. As water dragon, it's like water hydrant. She's using all the waters that's still around and combines to make one more new technique, combining the water dragon jutsu and her chains to create the water hydra technique. because the chains keep growing, the water keeps growing and making more hydras. They attack Naruto, and Naruto's like, activates his Rasengan, except he activates one other technique, Tornado Fist! Wind Style Rasengan! I can't remember the technique name people have been asking me to write down the names of techniques. I really should. I just don't get around to it. But anyway, he combines his Rasengan with his Wind Style Tornado Fist, combined with a little Kurama Chakra. And as I've explained, by using the Wind Chakra while forming the Rasengan, he's making a pseudo Wind Rasengan in there. So they blast the techniques hit, and just when Karine unfortunately goes, pop! Oh, crap. Yeah, and Naruto quickly catches her. He's huffing and puffing too. He's tired, but he's like, right on, Karine. It's like, you really are something amazing. It's like, back at you. And it's like, all right, let's get you out of here. And so the last matches are Fu versus Gaara and Naruto versus Sasuke. Sasuke is just looking on waiting. It's like, I've been waiting for this, dweeb. It's like, your wait's almost over, Tim. And before that happens, though, the fight with Gaara and Fu happens. Now, I'll save you the overall details, A, because I'm low on battery, and B, it's a little irrelevant. But Gaara is a bit more of a problem for Fu than any of the other opponents, because he can attack at serious range. And so that's what's happening. She's able to use some of the sand to create the earth, but he's able to manipulate that. So that doesn't work out. She ultimately has to go into some Tail Beast Chakra to bypass him. He goes into a Sphere to bypass her. She basically uses a combination of the Blinding Scale technique with her Earth Style to more or less create a giant spike gauntlet, kind of like Kimimaro did with his bone, and pierce the sand, and he's just barely able to do it. I think she even barely stabs him. My blood! It's my blood! And so this is where the invasion of the sand and the sound begins. And everyone's like, what the hell's going on? Everyone who knows how to release Genjutsu, including Naruto and Karine, release the Genjutsu. And Sasuke, with the Sharingan, is able to just do it also. I was like, what the hell's going on? And obviously, now we have the invasion. And so what's going to happen after that? Find out next time. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.